started. Welcome everybody to today's second Renewable Energy Services Hub program webinar. First of all, I wish to acknowledge the Palawa people, their deep history and ongoing connection to the sky, land and sea surrounding where we live. I wish to thank them for caring for our beautiful Nipaluna for the past 60,000 years and going forward. And I also wish to acknowledge leaders past and present. So my name's Kim Enkler. I'm the Director of Future Industries at Renewables, Climate and Future Industries Tasmania, or RECFIT for short, which is a division of the Department of State Growth. RECFIT's responsible for advising government on energy and climate change policies, running industry and grants programs, working to build our renewable energy generation in Tasmania, and supporting new energy industries and major energy projects across the state. But today, we're here to share some important work that we've progressed to identify renewable supply chain opportunities on the horizon for Tasmanian businesses. We think we've got a pretty exciting agenda coming up for you over the next hour. You'll be hearing from our RESH program market advisor, Sean Van Steel. You'll also be hearing from Bruno Ferreira from the Industry Capability Network. And we really thank Mark Adams and Bess Clark, our two renewable energy proponents, who will be offering insights into their prospective projects, as well as sharing how this could provide opportunities for Tasmanian businesses. And we are very, very grateful for all of our speakers for giving up their time today. So a little bit of housekeeping before we move on further. So firstly, note that the webinar is being recorded. The recording will be made available to participants after the event and for those who couldn't make it today for further reference. Now, we will have time for questions, and if you have any of those during the presentations, please type them into the Q&A box. So that's at the top of your screen. We're not using the chat function today. We've disabled that, but we will be addressing your Q&A questions at the end of the session. We've got a few people online today, so we might have to do a little bit of moderation going forward. And if we don't answer your question towards the end, we will get back to you and follow that up. And I've also asked the team to pop our email, which is futureindustries@recfit.tas.gov.au into the Q&A. And so if you don't want your Q&A to go through today, please just send it through to us at that email address. We will try and ensure that we can cover as many questions as possible. If you could keep them really brief and relevant, that would be awesome. So in terms of setting the scenes, we might have some new people online today, and I wanted to talk to you about, before we explore supply chain insights, what's really going on in the energy sector today in Tasmania. So in late 2020, the Tasmanian government legislated a target to produce 200% of the state's annual renewable energy needs by 2040. And this sent a really strong message to renewable energy developers and investors. Tasmania is open for business, but more importantly, committed to scaling renewables and accelerating the transition. Now, 5 years on, what's happened? The momentum is clear, and across the state we have 22 new energy generation projects and storage projects that are currently proposed. These will be supported by 4 proposed transmission lines and the Marinus Link. And together these projects represent a potential generation capacity of upwards of 6 gigawatts and storage capacity of 1.7 gigawatts. And to put that into perspective, Tasmania's current generation capacity is just over 2 gigawatts. Now, these projects combined estimate $17 billion would be spent in construction costs, which would create nearly 4,000 jobs during the build phase, with 300 ongoing roles. And even if only a small share of these projects are realised locally, this could reflect a substantial economic uplift for Tasmania, particularly if this is coupled with the green hydrogen, green methanol export scale projects that are being advanced in Bell Bay and Burnie, and the domestic hydrogen projects underway across Tasmania. Now, further, offshore wind presents major long-term opportunity for Tasmania. And even without the development of the Bass Strait offshore wind zone, we have the nearby Gippsland offshore wind projects, which will require multiple ports to support construction and operation. Tasmanian ports are actually roughly as close to Gippsland as those in Victoria, positioning our state to play a pivotal role in the emerging offshore wind supply chain. And Victoria, like us, has legislated targets of an additional 2 gigawatts of energy by 2032, 4 gigawatts by 2035, and 9 gigawatts by 2040, with delivery ramping up around 1 gigawatt a year from 2030. Now, these are all big numbers and all big opportunities for Tasmania. We are trying to bring a bit of reality to these opportunities. And while we all see the news about renewable energy generation and hydrogen projects falling over or being delayed across Australia, we really must remember that these are mega projects and they are being advanced within complex systems and in a global market that's been marred by geopolitical issues. So we will see delays. This is normal. However, Australia and Tasmania, for that fact, we remain a safe and stable place to invest. And despite these challenges, we continue to attract a lot of investment attention. So in response to these opportunities, the Renewable Energy Services Hub program has been established to enable Tasmanian businesses to successfully deliver these renewable energy projects. The RESH program aims to achieve this by strengthening business capability and ensuring that government and industry work together to determine how projects and businesses can be successful. And that's what we're all about, and that's part of why we're here today. So to capitalise on these emerging opportunities, Tasmanian businesses really need to be prepared. There is work coming. Now, to help Tasmanian businesses match their strengths to new opportunities, well, we've heard from industry and business that it's essential for them, or for you, to understand the supply chain needs of upcoming development projects. And today's webinar is all about that. And here to lead you through our latest supply chain insights is Sean Van Steel. So Sean's the Renewable Energy Services Hub Program Advisor. He's leading our market intelligence work. He's also a director at Claw Marine, where he leads teams working across renewable energy, offshore engineering, offshore wind, and digital innovation across the globe. His experience covers pretty much everything from early feasibility studies to large-scale construction and marine operations, helping to drive the future of renewable energy and sustainable ocean industries. So we're in good hands today, and I'd like to hand it over to you now, Sean, to take us through what you've found so far. Thank you.
Thank you for that intro, Kim, and it's great to see everyone online here. Yeah, as Kim was alluding to there's a lot of opportunity and potential coming up here, sort of within Tasmania and broadly across Bass Strait. So what we want to sort of step you too far. Let me try and drive technology. Step you through is some of the work that the team here at RecFed have been doing as part of RESH and some of the advisory work. So really what we're trying to do, as Kim mentioned, is bring some reality to all these big numbers. You know, there's big flashy numbers there, big flashy steel things and all that kind of thing. Let's bring some reality to it and what is the local capability and capacity in Tasmania, and what can we actually be delivering in reality. So to do that, we need to know what is the demand coming from the industry. So mapping out that overall project demand and layering that over with local supplier capability to see where our strengths lie and where there may be gaps and opportunities for RESH to really play a role and support that development. So by doing that, we're going to provide sort of an outline to the industry here. You can see there's a draft here on the supply chain opportunities, which is a report that will be coming out in the near future. And what we're going to step through is some of the snapshots from that. So that's how we're going to do it, present that snapshot. And then the next stages of this development will be, you know, a two-way database of some sort, so that both suppliers and proponents can utilize that to pretty much matchmake and find each other. And we're going to get a bit of an insight into how that may play out from Bruno speaking about the ICN in a second. But the work that we've been doing, understanding what projects are coming up in our future. Really, we've classified them into four broad categories. You've got your solar and battery energy storage solutions, or BESS projects. Right now, there is about 6 projects in Tasmania being developed that have some sort of certainty around potential timelines. What we see is for those, they will be starting construction sometime next year in 26. Not all of them, but some of them will be starting then and progressing on into the future from there. There's about 9 onshore wind projects. They're a bit more delayed in their construction. So these are large utility scale developments going on, and we expect to see some construction for those starting in 2027. These dates here that I'm talking about don't account for some of those early works, so some site investigations and sort of engaging with communities and understanding. This is the heavy construction manufacturing piece that we're focusing on with these dates. So that's where we come to offshore wind. As Kim alluded to, Victoria has a target of 2 gigawatts generating by 2032. Right now there's 10 licenses within that Gippsland region. But trying to map those projects and who's actually going to get up, really what we use is those legislated targets. And to build out at 1 gigawatt a year, they're going to be starting offshore construction around 2030. And then there is a broad swath of future industries around the green hydrogen, some e-fuels, electrification and other things like that that will also be happening in parallel to these major clusters of projects. So what we've mapped out here in the background is going, what do these projects have in common and where do they sort of differentiate, so we can try to get an understanding of the large scale demand coming up across the sort of timeline. And okay, you know, a solar plant is quite different to a offshore wind plant, but there is some key skills and capability that we'll be manufacturing and developing that can be compatible across the two. So that's where we're looking at the balance of plant piece. But early stage development project management, there is very much crossover skills there around sort of environmental aspects, consultations, approvals, and getting those financing pieces up. The professional services, there is definitely a lot of crossover there. And then in the balance of plant, which is where you're starting to do some of that manufacturing and local fabrication piece. Where you deviate is in the generator piece with your wind turbines, your photovoltaic cells and batteries. And that's where you get very specialized for the specific project. Noting that this is very broad scale and high level, we have gone into a lot more detail in some of the work we have been doing, but given we don't have hours, we can't dig into it, but this is giving you a snapshot there. So what that looks like when we map it out across time is, for a solar battery project, they're coupled together as pretty much the same kind of development. They're the only difference being whether you're having a battery system or a solar farm generation. We're seeing a lot of those coming together as one project these days. Overall development from them, from when they start that sort of initial consultation process on their project, it's about 4 years till we see completion of delivery or commercial operation date. And sort of the key milestones coming out from your development application approvals after about 6 to 12 months. Then you make your final investment decision bit over a year after that, and then it's about 2 years, give or take, to build out those projects with those various activities happening across the timeline. So as I mentioned earlier, we're seeing some solar projects starting construction sometime next year, so pretty much they'll be reaching this FID or final investment decision sometime in 26. So that's where we're going to see a lot of this manufacturing, fabrication and early works happening. These projects, however, are already out in the market now in early stage engagement and procurement, trying to figure out how they're going to deliver them, because they need that input to make that final decision. So as local suppliers, we need to be actually presenting to them and showing off what we can do locally here to deliver those projects. Following on from that, we have the same for onshore wind, a slightly more complex program, a bit more longer lead times, a bit more longer developments, but we can still see that same sort of mechanism there around where you're getting that early engagement of procurement happening before that investment decision. Those wind projects, their investment decision is happening sometime in 27 when they start that major construction and early works. So they'll be coming into the market fairly soon to start procuring their item, or starting that engagement process for procuring. And then lastly, we have offshore wind, which is arguably the most complex piece here because there's a lot larger equipment and a lot more complex angle to work through. Let I'm just going to mute you there. And then, yeah, offshore wind, as I said, is a lot longer lead times, typically 7 or 8 years to actually get the projects up and going from when in Australia, the mechanisms are the feasibility license award, which lasts for about 7 years, and then stepping through all of those processes. I'm not going to step through this in a lot of detail, but you can see there's a long timeline and period of work packages coming up. When we map these out over all of the projects that we see, there is a consistent and increasing demand in the market for specific skills and work packages. So what we want to be doing then is we've mapped all of those out, as I say, into that report that will be coming out in the next couple of months, weeks. And yeah, you can then dig into that and see where you as a potential supplier in this market can really start to sort of tailor your business and start delivering to some of these projects that are coming up. But to understand how we can actually engage with them, we can then step over to Bruno, who is giving up his time here. So Bruno is the state manager for the Industry Capability Network in Tasmania, delivered by the state government through Department of State Growth. ICN Tasmania team advocates for Tasmanian capability and helps maximise Tasmanian content in major projects across Tassie, Oz and even overseas. He specialises in stakeholder engagement, government relations and value-driven communication. So ICN here have a sort of pivotal role for us to sort of make this come to reality. So I'm going to hand it over to you now, Bruno, and let you step through that.
Thanks very much, Sean, and good afternoon, everyone. So we have a uniquely privileged role, we believe, in Tasmania. And that is to connect Tasmanian industry to anyone that is looking to deliver a project, buy goods or services, or engage with Tasmanian industry in any way possible. It probably benefits everyone to start off with a quite high-level introduction of what the Industry Capability Network is, because it is quite a broad concept and there are obviously varying levels of familiarity. At a national level, we are a federated network of offices in every state and territory of Australia and now also with an office in New Zealand. And we represent the largest database of supplier capability that exists at a state level and nationally. The structure of ICN offices varies in each state and territory, and in typical Tasmanian style, we do things a little bit differently. So in Tassie, we're one of 2 regions where the Industry Capability Network has been embedded entirely into state government. That means that the ICN program is delivered through the Department of State Growth, and it's delivered as a wholly subsidised service, so that if you're looking to deliver a project in Tasmania as a proponent, or if you're a Tasmanian business looking to leverage support from ICN to participate in projects happening in Tasmania and across Australia, there is no cost to play. At a Tassie level, we play a variety of roles through different project life cycles, and it starts pretty much from the get-go. So one of the earliest involvements that we have is supporting project proponents in planning through their industry participation plans and helping them maximise the efficacy of their engagement approach with local industry. Once we go through that process with them and the project moves into pre-procurement phase, the next role that we take on is one of facilitating pre-procurement activity through supplier expressions of interest, so the proponents can then conduct their supplier shortlisting and start a quote or tender process with the most suitable suppliers, ideally with maximum representation from Tasmanian businesses. Once we go through that stage, the bulk of our involvement reduces quite dramatically, but there is still application for ICN and a role for ICN through the ongoing phases of a project life cycle. Mostly that will look like single requirement capability reporting through the various build and operation and sustainment phases of a project. We also provide support for proponents and lead contractors with industry engagement events. We disseminate news and updates around projects. And we also do what we call value add activities, which is we coordinate workshops, resources and events where we bring subject matter experts from across the country to Tasmania and provide tailored content for Tasmanian businesses to help them be as competitive as possible when competing for opportunities that come up through ICN. The key caveat there is that in all of the work that we do, we can only be as successful as our data pool allows us to represent industry. And so we spend a lot of time and a lot of energy meeting with businesses, engaging with industry associations and peak bodies, encouraging businesses to register a profile on ICN, because once we know about your business, it's incredibly easy for us to make sure that we're putting your business in front of project proponents, we're putting your business in front of opportunities for upskilling, and we're connecting you to opportunities to showcase what you can do and what you can make and what you can sell. And that is really critical for us. As I said, we are the single largest database of supply capability in Tasmania, but our representation of the broader Tasmanian industry landscape still has a lot of room for growth. There is, in terms of a contextually appropriate audience for ICN, there's approximately 33,000 Tasmanian businesses that we believe should be registered on ICN so that we can put our best foot forward in representing all of the great things that Tasmanian businesses do. So I do very much encourage you to scan the QR code that's on the screen and start the registration process. Just pick a free profile because that's all you need. And once you start, our team will reach out to you and provide any support to get your profile up and running, make sure that the content in your profile is compelling, and provide you with any support that you may need for submitting expressions of interest. Once you're up and running, there's a few key benefits. First and foremost is that we'll send you automatic notifications whenever there's a new project or work package that has a capability or is looking for a capability that matches your business profile. That is a distinct departure from a lot of the tendering platforms that require you to be quite proactive. And supplementary to sending out the automated notifications for what comes up on Gateway by ICN, my team also does a weekly roundup of Oz tenders, the tendering website, TenderLink, to understand what new opportunities are out there and match them to Tasmanian businesses. We then disseminate them across the various teams that exist within State Growth so that we can make sure that client managers are engaging with your businesses to let you know what's out there. That is very much the bulk of what we do. We are a connector and a resource, and we very much like it when we get a chance to meet with new businesses, understand what you can do, and understand how we can best promote you. So yeah, if you do have any questions about ICN, please feel free to reach out. Please feel free to pop up questions later on when we do the Q&A. I'll be very happy to talk to you. That's it from me.
Thank you for that, Bruno. It's a great asset and tool that we have down here in Tassie, having been working in the background with some of the ICN data and work they're trying to map across the sort of that project demand and seeing where the strengths lie. So as Bruno was saying, definitely get on there and register if you're a local supplier there, because getting on there then allows us to best match you up with those potential projects that are coming up. Up next, we're fortunate enough to have Mark Adams, the lead supply chain development manager for Ørsted. So for those who don't know, I won't steal your thunder there. Mark, I'll let you introduce Ørsted. I can introduce you. Mark is responsible to lead the local supply chain development activities for Ørsted's Gippsland projects. He's recently joined from Ørsted UK, where he led the development of local supply chains and worked on the Hornsea 3 project, the largest single offshore wind project in the world. He brings over 15 years' experience working to grow the offshore wind supply chain from both a developer and UK government perspective. The Ørsted's vision is a world that runs entirely on green energy, and as the global leader in offshore wind, Ørsted are partnering with Australia to unlock that power of offshore wind. So I'll hand it over to you, Mark, to step through sort of the projects that you guys have going on and how you see sort of the supply chain developing out.
Perfect. Thanks, Sean, and good afternoon to everyone. And thank you to Kim for the acknowledgement of country, and thanks for the whole RecFit team for the invite to present today. As Sean says, my name is Mark Adams, and I'm responsible for the development of supply chain in the offshore wind industry at a company called Ørsted. Development of supply chains is exactly that. I help build local supply chains through the project life cycle to ensure that it can add value to our projects, but also to the supply chain. And over the next 15 minutes, I'd just like to share a bit more information on who we are as a company, offshore wind in Australia, but most importantly, some practical insights that I look for when engaging with the supply chain. So Ørsted are a Danish headquartered offshore wind developer. We develop, build and operate offshore wind farms across the world. To some, historically, you may well have known us as Dong Energy, one of our previous names when we were very much in an oil and gas world. But over the last 20 years, we have completely transitioned to be a 100% renewables developer with assets in offshore wind, onshore, solar and CCUS. Our primary market in terms of capacity is in the United Kingdom, where I'm from, but we're delighted to bring our global expertise to Australia. And I hope some of the bullets that you can see there around us being the world's first, largest and most experienced gives you an insight of both the value and insight that we would like to bring to Australia as we learn what the local market feels like and the opportunities that local suppliers can provide us. Next slide, please. As a business and myself personally, I've been with Ørsted for nearly 5 years now, really proud to have played a role in renewable generation globally. And we see offshore wind in Australia as playing a really important part of the global renewables build out. Hornsea 3, as Sean mentioned, which is a project that I've recently been working on since before my move here, is being built in the UK at the moment and will be the world's single largest project. I find that often, though, when we talk about gigawatts, it doesn't always relate to everybody. So in context, the Hornsea 3 project will provide enough electricity to provide 3 million homes annually in the UK. So when we talk about that energy transition, when we talk about the targets that Kim mentioned at the beginning, when we translate it into the impact that it will have on our daily lives, on the homes that we live in, it's really important. So as you can see here, the areas that we have worked in across the piece, predominantly in offshore wind, is global, and I'm really pleased to see the area lit up in white at the bottom right for Australia as well, for Ørsted. And next slide, please, Emma. So when it comes to Australia and the Gippsland area in Australia, we're really proud to secure that feasibility license that Sean made reference to, which was last year from the Victorian government. Our 2 projects are aptly named Gippsland 1 and Gippsland 2. We'll see what we can do in the future around those names to maybe distinguish them a little bit more. But as a total export capacity of 4.8 gigawatts, again, let's translate that into real world terms. That's 4 million Australian households per year if the full 2 sites are developed. We have a team on the ground in Victoria as we continue to develop and optimise the project. We're awaiting some further policy guidance in the coming months from the Victorian government as we go into what will be an auction round. But the site characteristics, the ambitious target that we see from the Victorian government, the volume of supply chain that we see in Tasmania and Victoria to really help build these projects is something that is really attractive to us. And today is one of those first parts of that early stage engagement with the likes of yourself to really connect and engage with the industry. Next slide, please. And so, as I say, we secured our feasibility license in early last year, in 2024, and we are already on the ground. We are already doing things, and this is just a bit of an example of the early stage development works of a wind farm, which is undertaking the site investigations and environmental surveys. So yes, we're here, and we look forward to connecting with the market. But if we zoom out a little bit and stepping away from the specifics of offshore of Australia and offshore wind, I would like to use the remaining time to highlight the core functions of an offshore wind infrastructure project, as you maybe begin to consider where your product or service sits within this project life cycle. For context, and Sean touched on it, some of those timescales, the stages of developing, building and operating an offshore wind farm will be in excess of 35 years. So when you think about what you do as a supplier, please don't restrict yourselves to the development because it's something that you may see coming sooner rather than later. Look at what your skills and services are required for these projects and consider where it could best fit. So you'll see these slides later. That gives you a bit of an idea of an infrastructure project, and also sometimes it can be quite challenging to reflect what an infrastructure project looks like in offshore wind when you can't actually see it. So hopefully this gives you a nice easy diagram of our projects. But yeah, I'd like to introduce maybe some top level comments on the next slide around what we look for when we engage with the supply chain, or what we would encourage suppliers to do when it's a new market, a new sector, and really starting to understand more about it. So I would say, for me, any potential supplier in the offshore wind sector should seek to understand and apply these 6 areas to engagement, with a lot of it around getting in the door with the right person. These can be applied to any sector you operate in, and I'm sure you implement many of these already. So really knowing who your customer is. Whilst we as a developer of offshore wind, we will use a huge magnitude of top level tier 1 suppliers, and they will pass on subcontracts along the line. For you to know who your customer is, spend some time really understanding the market conditions. Utilize your network, use RECFIT. There'll be a fantastic first port of call to really help you understand the sector. Work with ICN, work on solutions that can add value to the sector in addition to all the work that you're doing already, and engage. My door is very much open, and I'm ready to understand more about your product and service and try and signpost you as to who your customer might be. And then from an Ørsted perspective, I suspect again from many of your customers as well, we do consider a multitude of factors when it comes to assessing the suitability of new and our existing suppliers. And it won't be a surprise to you to know that health and safety is fundamental to everything we do at Ørsted. The top priority for continual improvement, and that our supply chain partners will need to demonstrate their ability to share that safety focus. But alongside that, we're looking for ability for our suppliers what's their ability to schedule quality. Costs are critical. Your transparency and adaptability as we go through building these mega infrastructure projects. And fundamentally looking at how we can continuously bring down that levelized cost of energy as it impacts all of our energy bills at the end of the day. And for new suppliers, for me personally, I like to understand what your experience and background has been like. It doesn't have to be an offshore wind, but again, understanding your applicability of your products or services and how it can translate. And then the bottom 2, really crucial, your ability to deliver and the competence and value of delivery underpin those 8 points above. So if we then bring it back to what does it mean for Tasmania? I've only been here in Victoria for a couple of months now, but very much the points, the green sentences that I highlight here echo the areas that Sean has also highlighted, where I already can see that there is some significant strengths and opportunities in the local supply chain and in the areas such as ports, vessels, the onshore substation for the civils and site works, our O&M activity, and of course environmental opportunities, which are maybe a bit more near term. So consider those points, consider where that might apply for you, and then start to consider how you will best engage with the sector, not just Ørsted, because there are many other activities ongoing beyond us as well. Tying in seamlessly to the engagement that Bruno talked about, we've had our ICN page set up for around 9 months now, and we've had plenty of EOIs already. We'll generally encourage lots to register in the future. But again, those bullets at the bottom that we can already see that tie in with where we know there is expertise within Tasmania and the wider regions. And then the last slide, Emma, is the classic of if you would like to find out more, I'm happy to be connected. But these two ports of call in the first instance, I would strongly recommend is first of all our newsletter to get project updates on what we're doing in for Orsted Australia and our Gippsland projects. And then also you can visit our ICN project gateway, which is under the Orsted Gippsland Offshore Wind project. And then last slide, I guess, as Sean described in the bio, it's not there, but you know, we generally say when we say let's create a world that runs entirely on green energy, it is our commitment as a business. We can't do this alone. We need really strong suppliers who want to be bought into that vision as well. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
Thank you for that, Mark. Very insightful, I hope, for a lot of the sort of participants and listeners on this webinar. One thing I'll say about the Ørsted projects, they're probably one of the developers that sort of engage most broadly within the supply chain. We see developers globally do different means of actually delivering their projects. Some will engage, as Mark mentioned, you know, a tier one supplier who take on all of it, and then it's up to them to actually engage and deliver. Whereas what we see globally from Ørsted is they do a lot of smaller packages and manage all of them and really understand where their supply chain sits. So definitely reach out to Mark if you want to know more, but also, again, understand who those customers are. And for a lot of people on this call, your customer may not be directly into Ørsted, it may be into those tier ones or even sort of a subcontract underneath that. And that's some of the work that we're doing internally here at RESH to sort of highlight and outline where they may be coming from in those packages. So yeah, keep an eye out for that one. Next up, we'll have Bess Clark to sort of step through some of the work that they're doing there at TasRex. A lot of you from Tasmania probably have heard of Bess a few times over. She's currently the CEO of TasRex, a Tasmanian renewable energy business. TasRex is developing the Northern Midland solar farm in Connellville, Cressy, and it's due to start construction in 2026. Once it's built, it will be a 288 megawatt plus solar farm, will be the state's fourth largest generator. Bess has also worked in state's electricity sector for over 20 years as CEO of Marinus Link and in executive roles at Tas Networks and Transend Networks, and originally started her career in Sydney Water. So I'll hand it over to you, Bess, to give us an update on the Northern Midlands.
Thank you. Well, hello everyone. Just checking my controls. Here we go. So I'm going to give an update about TasRex, about the Northern, and then about the Northern Midland Solar Farm, and then I think we're having a session at the end for questions for all of us. So for those who aren't familiar with TasRex, we are a Tasmanian renewable developer. We could see the fantastic clean resource Tasmania has, the fantastic hydro firming stored resource we have, and the potential to build on that resource to produce clean energy, but also clean products here in Tasmania. We have strong government support with an MOU from the Tasmanian government. Our first priority is the Northern Midland Solar Farm, which when in service will be the state's fourth largest generator, although hopefully it will be superseded by some other exciting projects on this list not long after. We are also looking at that longer term development pipeline, including things like green fuels, and as part of our team we have expertise in ammonia and methanol, and are working with CSIRO and the Maritime College on an ammonia safety training piece of work at the moment. We are a local business, we are passionate Tasmanians, so we are looking for opportunities to prioritise local jobs and longer term opportunities. So we'll talk a bit about that. We've got a local and nationally recognised board and leadership team, including our chair, Ian Saw, who may be better known to some of you as in his role as chair of Tas Farmers. I'll skip over that. And we are building the 288 megawatt plus AC, Northern Midlands Solar Farm. It is for about 400 megawatts DC. And we say plus because we are looking to have actually another 11 megawatts available in the first instance and 22 in the longer term. But 288 capacity available without tripping. And then the quick question, why Tassie Solar? We're a long way south. The mainland does solar well. Why would we do it? For Tasrex, it's really about complementing the fantastic big battery we've already got in this state, which is our hydro storages. We produce a lot of solar in summer, far less in winter. However, that's quite complementary to when hydro gets inflows to its storages. So we tend to have more rain over the cooler, darker months and less rain over the sunnier months. And so hydro tends not to have spare water at the time that we can actually generate lots of solar. So we're really quite complementary and can help hydro to keep that water in storage so it can be turned on for significant value as clean, dispatchable energy. And ultimately, the value proposition of us working with Hydro Tasmania was recognised, and we have won an offtake contract with Hydro Tasmania, which is underpinning a project's business case. In terms of the site, we have a 14-kilometre transmission line that goes from the solar farm site into TasNetwork's existing Palmerston substation. And then we have two areas, very creatively named Solar West and Solar East. We are on an old transmission line it's very lightly loaded. It was originally built as an 88 kV line, but we need a lot bigger capacity. So we've got an innovative solution to deal with that. The design is agri-solar in as much as it's been designed to have single axis tilting panels that still allow grazing of sheep under the panels so that we can get ongoing agriculture and renewable energy from the site. It's wholly within the Conneville station, so has very limited impacts in terms of neighbour visual impacts. And so we've been very fortunate to work with the O'Connor family, and of the 14 kilometres of easement, about 5 k's of that is also within O'Connor family properties, and we're working with the other 4 families who own the balance of the easement to finalise arrangements for updated easements. Sorry. In terms of transmission, the plan is that we are working with TasNetworks and we will replace the old lattice towers with new pole towers at 220,000 volts, and one side will still hold TasNetworks shared asset through to Avoca, connecting Palmerston, Avoca, St Mary's, and the other side will just be for the solar farm at 220,000 volts. So we'll have a 110,000 connection at the solar farm substation, which we need to build, and we'll have a 220,000 volt connection in at Palmerston substation. And we are working with TasNetworks and also engaging with AEMO, the market operator, on all the planning studies we've completed to progress the connection requirements from TasNetworks, and that's all going very well. In terms of design, we've iterated it to take into account all the expected constraints and manage those using a lot of Tasmanian consultancies to help us with roads, cultural assessment, community engagement, surveys, etc., fire assessment. So we've taken that all account using a lot of local expertise to help us. We've also looked at how best to safely design the panels, and that's informed the use of the 1P design. We've got SMA inverters been selected because they work well to achieve national market compliance, and we have actually have taken away, we originally had approval for a big AC battery site as part of this project, but with Hydro as our customer, where they are the big battery, we have removed that component and actually put more solar panels in the area we'd proposed, but we have provided in the site design the ability to have DC coupled batteries, so on the solar panel side of the inverters, which in the longer term we expect will be part of the design, but under the Hydro contract we will not need a battery. We've been working with the local company Intura to do all the detailed design of and to inform the connection studies and early costings for the project. We've also been working with local geotech survey companies for both the transmission line and the solar farm survey to inform the detailed construction inputs and pricing. And we're at the phase where we've done our feasibility, we've got the planning approval. It's a non-controlled action under the environmental acts. We've got a commercial framework working together with the landowner and a company called Birdwood Energy to take the project forward. We've got the site lease and are finalising the easements. We have an agreement with Hydro for offtake, and we're now very much in the procurement phase. We have a preferred transmission partner who is Solus Infrastructure, and they have started design of the transmission line and the substation on the site. And we have a solar farm tender process underway right now. And that process closes in early November. And as I mentioned, the connection studies process is also well underway. So our goal is that we will have all our inputs finalised by early next year and reach financial close in the first quarter of next year. We've got a 1.5 year construction period with phased, our planning is phased commissioning, so we will start to connect the solar farm once we've met all the connection requirements, the transmission lines there, and as we start to build the solar panels. And then the solar farm will operate for 30 years. So in terms of our services, which I know is what a lot of people are interested in, there's a whole range of services there. Obviously roads, we have to build access roads into the site and down to the substation. We have fencing, including it needs to be high security fencing to keep deer out, amongst other things. Concreting, electrical, engineering, civil works, piling, mechanical services, installation labour, land and sea transport and storage of equipment, a whole range of logistics to manage, and then services such as safety, environment, commissioning, and other expert skills to support the contractor. And our model is that we are going to our contractors and they will be procuring those services. I do note, I think I've seen on this call, we have Ben Young from Tranex. So Tranex is a Tasmanian solar business who predominantly works in mainland Australia, because we haven't done large-scale solar in Tasmania before. But we have been working with Ben to look at how we can look at training up Tasmanians to be the installation labour and support services for this project, because we do want Tasmanians to be working on our project, but ideally working on a range of solar projects into the future in Tasmania. The other thing I noticed, there's also a regional uplift needed in things like accommodation, food and beverage, fuel, and a whole range of support services for the workforce that's coming into this area. We're just out of Cressy. The Northwest Transmission is in a similar area, with Palmerston Substation having a big upgrade, and then the Northwest Transmission line. So there are real opportunities to look at regional accommodation solutions in the region as well. And I think the coffee machine will be running hot at the cafe in Cressy. at the bakery. We have already got a whole list of contractors that we've provided to our EPC providers. However, if you are not on that list and would like to be added, you can let us know. And we are also engaging with the ICN to make sure that those providers who would like to be already registered there but would like to be added to our list, that we can do that as well. So I think in the interest of time, that's probably the end of my presentation for now.
Thank you for that, Bess. You've got definitely a lot going on right now. Trying to get all the pieces of the puzzle to line up so you can make that to meet your financial close there for Q1 26, which is very exciting to see, and it's coming around quicker than we probably want in some stages, or not quick enough in other aspects. So what we'll do now is, we've just pulled everyone up there. We've got a couple of questions that have come in through the chat, so I'll sort of try to filter through some of them and pass them over as we see fit. Maybe to here's a direct one for you, Mark. What is the expectation of percentage of local content in offshore wind projects in Australia versus Europe? And how important do you see that local content provision for project developers in evaluating a risk in projects in Australia, or does it make the project just too expensive by using international service and product suppliers?
Yeah, that's a really good and relevant question to exactly the one I'm asking myself at the moment. But first and foremost, we know already that many of the large components and the global capability does not sit in Australia. If we just look back on your slide, Sean, that kind of highlighted some of those packages, we will know that certain turbines, aspects of foundations, cables, electrical components will have to come from overseas, because fundamentally that capacity does not exist at this moment in time. Doesn't mean that it can't and won't exist in the future. So really, for us to really understand that is likely to happen, but then not discounting where there are still some really clear local opportunities. When I hear the word local content, I always think there's everyone has a different term for local content. If we use the term local value, it suddenly turns into something a lot more positive and engaging, and we want to bring local value to the area. We want to work with local suppliers where it makes business sense for us and for those suppliers. We're quite clear as to where we can do that today and where we would probably like to be in 5 to 10 years' time, where there is a stronger pipeline, where there's an increase in capability.
Yeah, very well put there. And as you said, definitely a pipeline of work for them to be able to focus on. I might flick it to you, Bess. This is one that's come in through a different channel here. But from some of the work that you've been doing and suppliers you've been engaging with and building out that longer term pipeline, what do you see as some of the key skills or crossover points from sort of a supplier that might be delivering to your project there in the Northern Midlands that might be able to also gain sort of a longer term pipeline of work into an offshore wind project, say?
Yeah, well, I guess a lot of the elements, there's a whole lot of civil construction elements. So, we're going to be digging lots of holes, pouring lots of concrete, making roads, having bits of metal being stuck together, different size potentially to offshore wind, but there's a whole lot of sort of fabrication and linked civil services in all that area. And I have to say, I don't claim to be an expert in any of this, so please forgive my non-expert language. And then there's also the electrical elements. We're going to, have a range of different levels of electrical skill, whether it's working on the DC side of a solar farm or the HV side or even the EHV side, and all of those elements will have a role into, wind and offshore wind projects. So those things. And then there's also things like transport, storage, the whole logistics around how do we get some of the kit that won't be made in Tasmania to Tasmania, how do we get it from international markets, etc., to efficiently to Tasmania and stored, and then by land into our sites, and again making sure our roads and bridges, etc., are fit for purpose to carry the heavy equipment that we need. So, yeah, there's a lot of common there. Then there's also all the environmental, the project management, safety expertise. There's huge overlaps. A lot of it, you know, you may be particularly expert at one thing, but a lot of the principles are the same across the nature of the projects. And then commissioning resources, the power system experts, all those sorts of things. Again, a lot of commonality. And then it is linked, but things like the services, how do we do accommodation well in Tasmania? How can we do it in a way that we leave a legacy, because we know we need accommodation? How can we work with councils, with state growth? Others to say, instead of just having camps that get put in and then moved off, are there opportunities to you know, leave more tiny homes or things that have a more flexible opportunity for ongoing use in Tasmania? So, yeah, there's some of the things that occur to me. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree on a lot of that. You know, being a island state where most of our equipment has to come in via sea anyway, definitely lends itself to a special skill set that we have in Tasmania of dealing with maritime infrastructure and maritime logistics. And that, as you say, covers both onshore solar, onshore wind, and then, you know, the broader picture there into offshore piece. Just noting on time that we probably have to come pretty much up onto the hour now, so I'm going to pass it back to Kim to sort of summarise and wrap up. But I just want to say thank you to Bruno, Mark and Bess for sort of participating and providing some of the insights on your projects. And yeah, hopefully we can continue some of this work and try to get some local value added into Tasmania.
Thanks very much, Sean, and to Craig and Rick and a couple of others that have put in some late Q&As. We'll get back in touch with you after the session. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We hope the discussion was useful. It's really a little bit of a taster with some of the work that's coming. For me, my key takeaways were there is work coming, there is time to get ready, and there are people that can help. Look, we'll be sending out a quick survey to collect some feedback on the session today. Please, we want to keep doing these webinars. Please help us to improve them in the future. But in terms of the RESH program, there is more activities coming, and we are currently seeking government approval for the broader RESH program, which includes some support, direct support for industry to build their capability. So in November, we're bringing together industry in Bell Bay and Launceston to spotlight upcoming projects, while also showcasing Tasmanian supplier capability to deliver these upcoming supply chain opportunity with proponents. So we'll be in touch with details on how to participate. At the moment, it looks like it'll be around the end of November. If you're a supplier online today, or you know suppliers and you're keen to be involved, and you'd love to be also added to our supplier database, you know, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us and let us know. And as I said before, Declan put our future industries at recfit.tas.gov.au email in the chat. Finally, we're preparing a RESH program insights and education booklet that details the supply chain opportunities referred to earlier by Sean. So it will be released in the coming months. Please keep an eye out for it. We hope to be able to release it in time for the November business to business event. With that, I'll bring the session to a close. Huge shout out to my team today, Emma and Declan in particular, and Sean in their efforts to bring together the webinar. Thank you again for your time and our speakers, and I hope you found the session very valuable. And wish you all a lovely afternoon. Thank you.